Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast. This is Jenny. I am the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Today we have Derek Johnson in the house, everybody. So please, as you know, typically Derek comes in and does some real raw talk. If we can get to some questions, we will. So I'll keep you posted on that. But sit back and relax, enjoy. There's a lot of great things happening, everybody. I'm going to kind of ask Derek some stuff up front. So hopefully we can get a lot of clarity and what's going on and get excited, everybody, because there's a lot of great things going on. We are literally winning, and Donald Trump is telling us in our faces without directly telling us, because again, everybody, we're at war and you can't give your enemy your next move. You have to appear weak when you are strong. So he's letting people know who the boss is. So everybody, if you guys, so for me to say, if you have a question for Derek, I'm not really going to say that because I don't know where we're going to go with it. I don't know if we'll have time for questions, but we'll figure that out as we go. Everybody, also too, if you come into the podcast late, or you'd like to share this podcast with a friend or a family member, please go follow us on the podcast host or the social medias, because I post them everywhere. And the podcast hosts are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Podbean, Riverside, Amazon Music. Social medias are Jenny Jeread Facebook, at Jenny_Jeread X, at Jeread Rumble, at Jeread Instagram, at Jeread True Social. The Revival of America right here on Telegram, the Revival of America on YouTube. However, I am in timeout over on YouTube for about another week, so I got a strike. Go figure. But I am in timeout, so I'm not able to post any of the shows now, but I will be back probably, I think it is in a week. I think it's a week, or was it 90 days? I don't know. I'm fairly new to the whole the YouTube thing, so that's a fairly new channel for me. But also to everybody, if you're having challenges over there in Rumble, I said it on the last two podcasts that I did today with John Baxter and Field McConnell. Go follow one of my other locations that I just read off, because I post these everywhere. I do listen to the replays, and on my end over here on Rumble, it sounds fine. I can hear it fine. You've got to maybe check into your settings on your phone, iPad, computer, TV, whatever it is, whatever device you're watching it on, check your settings, because I've had my tech guy. And again, like I said, I re-listen to my replays and I can hear them fine. So go listen to them on some of those other locations, because again, like I said, they're over there as well. Also, go check out the website, sign up for the newsletter, everybody. You'll get the weekly updates on the shows, as well as the weekly guests, the times, where they're going to be, whether it's going to be on my X Space, Telegram here. We're going to be coming into working on setting up the video part of the podcast. So that should be hopefully coming up in the next week or so with some of my guests. I'm going to try to, maybe if I can figure it out by Friday, have Juan be the first one to come on and do it, because I'm supposed to have Juan on Friday. So keep you posted on that. Um, so that is the revivalofamerica.com. There's Field's page over there with the books. There's one for the children, one for Carrie Kasem, one for John Baxter, one for Rick Anson with Brain IQ Health Supplements. So check it out, everybody. We are going to try to do more to the newsletter, just give you some kind of updates and maybe some upcoming things we're going to be doing. So watch for that. And then also, if you guys have a story or a journey to tell, please send your submissions to TROA submissions at yahoo.com. Give me a synopsis of your story. I will read them, vet them, reach out to you if I feel like it's legitimate, because unfortunately we're getting some fakesters bringing in fake stories just to be relevant. It's unfortunate that people are this way these days, but it is what it is. This is where we're at right now, guys. So I will vet them, and it will be your voice that will tell your story, because it's more authentic, legitimate, and it just, people want to hear it from you. I know some people get nervous, and I think they want me to tell the story for them. I'm happy to do it, but it just doesn't, it's not the same thing, right? So don't be nervous. Don't be afraid. I'm here. I'll walk you right through it. It's all good. Because remember, everybody, it's your voice, your journey that's going to help shape this new world that we're coming into. And if you guys have a question, or you would like to get in contact with John and his staff, or if you're looking to how to order Field's books, email me at therevivalofamerica@yahoo.com. That is my personal email. And I'll get you in touch with John Baxter and his team. Or if you have questions regarding Field's books, whatever it may be, reach out to me there, because I will respond. Give me a little bit of time, because I do have a day gig, guys, and I do this in my spare time. So I will respond to you as soon as I can. And then, but also too, know that I will not randomly reach out to you and ask you if you're ready for the scare event, finances, crypto. If you get something like that, unfortunately, many of us have those fakesters out there trying to create accounts that are saying that it's us, it's not me. Block, report them, let me know so I can make sure that they're not here in the chat. And everybody, please stick and stay with the 3 to 5 people. You guys, seriously, tighten up your circle, because the noise, the minutia, it's and the bullshit, it is there. The fear mongering, just stay out of it. If your mind's not strong enough to handle it, get out of the chat, get out of the podcast, get out of the comment box, because it's lunacy out there. So like I said earlier, I sat in a space last night, and I think I just got dumber listening to it. So I had to shake it off, because it was pretty intense, the stuff that they're putting out there about just Trump and everything. It's just horrible. So with that, Derek is in the house, so I want to welcome Derek. How are you, Derek?
Oh, I'm doing all right.
Where are you traveling now? I hear you're in the car.
Well, I'm going to my little spot in the woods where I can get service and park. So I'm not. It won't take me but another 2 minutes to get there. But
Oh, you're good. So while you're driving, I was telling the audience that if we can get to some questions, we'll try. But I have a lot of not a lot. I have a few questions I want to present to you, and I know you've probably got some stuff, and probably will add on to some of these questions, because we're seeing a lot of stuff happening, a lot of great stuff, a lot of comms out there, and just you can just see Trump is telling us without directly telling us, right? So obviously there's the big question mark about Venezuela. We have the troops in Chicago, and I would like you to tell the audience how this whole troops going into these cities and stuff ties into the laws and orders and the executive orders, as well as Trump. He posted that about the vaccines today being all poison. And then if you can touch on the Bill Gates and Zuckerberg having dinner. I know my opinion, and I think it's pretty spot on, but I think it's actually comical, and I think Trump is just letting everybody know who the boss is about them having dinner with Trump a couple nights ago at the White House, because I know a lot of people are losing their minds about that and not getting the full picture of what's really going on. So wherever you want to start, you go for it. The floor is yours, my friend.
well, that was. I feel like that rapper Harry Mack, where he gets like 5 words and he has to remember those rapping, and I'm like, okay.
Well, I'll help you through it along the way.
The first thing I heard was Venezuela.
Yes.
That's the first thing. Um, So Venezuela, obviously, this ties into your Dominion systems, this dates back years ago. Uh, so this is why I always tell people. I mean, and with all due respect, I'm trying to be nicer as we go, because I know it is a lot of information for people, but Venezuela dates years back. It ties into your Dominion systems. It ties into your swamp, obviously. And President Trump has an executive order and a national emergency. There's a national emergency open with Venezuela, so all that ties in. And then what they're doing with all this is brilliant once you know. Like once you finally get through all the bull crap, like I show people, all your news outlets, they are nothing but, again, most of you may understand this analogy. I use it all the time, but if you had a grandma like I did, who was a cook and was the old school, always in the kitchen, not from the woke society, how they talk about that, but we're talking about the old school grandmas, right? And they're cooking, they're baking. Um, and then you're the little spoiled grandchild like I was, especially on one side. I was the only grandchild, so I was really spoiled on that side. They hand you a spoon, and you get to lick the chocolate off, right? Well, it'd be like your grandma that spoiled you X amount of years, handing you a spoon, and then you barely get. I mean, you just barely get one little lick on, and then she snatches it, and you're like, "Whoa, what did I do? Yeah, you didn't do anything. You got to finish cooking." I'm like, "I thought you were finished, and that's the whole point of me licking the spoon." Well, that's what news does to you. They just give you a little bit of bull crap, and then you're supposed to go know what you're supposed to know: laws, orders. You don't have to be a lawyer or a judge or a congressman or woman to know the law. You just don't. I mean, that's the one thing our founders made sure about. They were all kinds of walks of life that became congressmen and women. Now, there weren't women at that time period, but as Congress, but uh, you get the point. So that's what news does. So all this stuff out there, and then you got all these people. A lot of the podcasters, they want to get right on one thing, and they want their algorithm to strike, and and they'll be like, oh, they finally got something right. Well, you don't want those people in your life. You want people who are consistent, who knows what's going on always. And I love all the people who follow me, but that's like I said the other day. If the future is what it still looks like to the normies, I don't want to be a part of it. I'll delete all my accounts and ride off to the sunset and sayonara, salute, deuces. And that's where people have to start empowering themselves. You got to break. Every person has the power to break away from the bullcrap. Everybody, and then everybody also has the authority and the power, though, to say, hey, this person, this person, this person, consistent, consistent, consistent. Somebody has to know. And it's like I tell people all the time, I'm not being braggadocious, but I'm just happen to be one of those people. You got to know what the commander's working with. Oh, it's all public. Nothing's hidden. It's all public. So the Venezuela and all these things, like you're going to see a lot of the news out there spinning, especially, oh, Lord have mercy, the Epstein stuff. But that's all by design, though. It's all by design, because when you know what 45-47 is, you go over to whitehouse.gov and says America is back. Um, you you can separate all that and know that if not you or whoever, maybe it is you. I don't know. I don't know who I'm talking to always, but if you're still falling negatively to any kind of press, if you're falling prey to anything negative, Epstein, Venezuela, Israel, whatever it may be, Ukraine, Russia, etc., you're not knowing what you can know, or you're not applying what you think you know, because you don't have to. And there's a way to literally put a smile on your face and live just as stress free like I do. Now, that's not saying not to work where you can work and put in the work, but what you could be putting in your work with is like what I'm doing, by showing people, hey, you got to go follow this guy. You got to go follow this guy and this girl. You got to go. They're consistent. They know exactly what's going on the front. They're problem solvers on the front, and they just might be operators. You just don't know that. Operators are never going to tell you that, but it just might be. So you can tell that by consistency. And so Venezuela that to me, it's a lot of this stuff is humorous. In another way, it's humorous for all the patriots, because all the patriots are over there and just licking their chops, knowing that, man, we're just now to Venezuela. Good Lord have mercy. We've been knowing that for a long time. So that goes back to Lieutenant Colonel Bosey, Special Operations Australia, that I'm on with a lot. He said this the other day. You got other people validating that have been in special operations that says, hey, special operators were always 2 to 5 years ahead of everybody with everything. And it's just because I don't care if you call me a nerd, but we're your nerds who know the laws, the orders, the publications, and then how they apply to each and every category, each and every section. And if it's a joint operation, then we know how they join and all these other things. So Venezuela is just one of those things that President Trump, I think it's 24 or 25. I have to go back and do that exact number, but I think it's 24 executive orders with national emergencies that have been open from 1979 to 2016. And then he has his own executive orders that have been open. And the whole quote unquote Biden stuff is a continuity. Once you know what a puppet government is and a government in exile, which is your special operation, then you'll understand what quote unquote Biden is. Just like today, President Trump shared Ted Cruz. You got to remember, a lot of it's theater, and then a lot of these people. This will tie into to your Bill Gates and your Zuckerberg and all those. Uh, Unfortunately for patriots, unfortunate for y'all, you have to wait. It's a wait game. Unfortunately, 54% of America have a 6th grade education and below at reading and comprehension. So they're using people who either had a liking or a following to use them, kind of like, a clone in another manner, kind of like, if you've ever watched some of those TV shows where they, like Touched by an Angel, used to be a show where the death angel would hop over in someone else's body, etc. Well, just look at it something like that. Make it fun, make it interesting. But that's what they're doing. They're using people who have big names and they're making them turn. Back in the 2016 campaign trail, President Trump said, "This is the biggest liar on stage right here." And he was talking about Ted Cruz. Now, all of a sudden, Ted Cruz, boy, so I'm going to tell you what, if he could paint his nose brown, if this was a real situation, which it's not, but for the people that thought it was, he'd have the brownest nose of all of them, because they ought to call him Ted and Tom. They ought to name him Tom Cruise and then misspell his last name, the real Tom Cruise, put it as Ted Cruz's last name, because he deserves an Oscar after the speech that President Trump shared today about the auto pen. Well, that's for the normies. For the patriots, that's your disclosure that they're gonna account for the auto pen in history. They're gonna account for the dash, because by laws, quote unquote, Joe was not president. But that's where you have to understand order of successions and how important they are. You have to understand, your executive orders with national emergencies combined. Then you have national emergencies that stand alone in proclamations, and then verbal national emergencies. There's all kinds of layers. So Ted Cruz was saying that today about the auto pen, and President Trump shared that. Well, all these people, a lot of them have followers, and it's a lot easier to win people over by flipping people and then making all. I've said it before. No matter what side of the aisle it is, you still got rhinos out there, and then you have your liberals. Well, all the liberals' heroes are going to fall. They're going to start praising President Trump. They're going to start working with President Trump. They're going to fall. They're not going to have any heroes left. And they're not going to have any that rise up, because they're not even a big percentile. They sound like it. And if you get on X is the real, X and Facebook are the only ones that can really see a lot of liberal activity. It's not that many. It's just because your algorithm may put them in there. Once you comment on one liberal's page, then they're going to flood your timeline with a bunch of libtards. That's how the algorithms work. I have nothing but libtards on my timeline because I troll all of them. And I gain a lot of followers that way, and gaining a lot of people who are going, holy crap. Like, because not all liberals are dumb. Not all liberals are lazy. They're just brainwashed, and they're on the complete opposite side of a rhino. Rhinos are brainwashed too. So they have to use players that get to them, because some people will listen to other people and they won't listen to you. Even yourself, you know that. A lot of you parents know that. A lot of you, if you're business owners or whatever, you know this. There's some people, it don't matter who you are. They don't want to hear it from you, because they know you're right. They don't want to hear it from you, though. They'll go hear it from someone else. So Ted Cruz, Bill Gates, all these people, that's all this is the flip of the dominoes. And then when all this is unveiled, when they rescue the children, save the children, when there's more and more of that, when they're showing all the crime being cleaned up, they're showing all the homeless people being cleaned up, when you can walk down Chicago and Baltimore and LA and all the places that we all know. I've been across the country many times, and I've been in many places where natives will go, hey, don't go past this street, and don't go west this far, and don't go. Everybody knows where to stay away from, because you know your city, you know your area, you know your region. We're going to get to a place where we don't have to do that. We're not going to have to do that. And we're going to have to we will suppress it so much. But that's where I tell people, you got to get tough. We can't be having people going down to the prison wanting to vouch more for the murderer than the people who just got murdered. I mean, that's where America got. We got so woke, and people, they're so woke. We can't have that. All right. And there's a way to live and let live. You can be gay as a $3 bill and still be a Republican or a conservative or patriot. So everybody has to find that equal balance. And so many people don't have a balance. People don't have that. It's like, it should have never gotten politics, your personal life. So you're seeing that with President Trump, all this Epstein bull crap. and the Democrats saying, "Oh, we've got the letter between him sending him a birthday man." No, that we're in such an age of technology. Anybody can fake anything. Letters, Photoshop. Anybody can make up anything about you. And see what happens is when it ain't you, oh, you pick your side, and you're like, oh, you traitor, you, and you this, you, and you that. When it's your someone you like, you defend them, right? But when it happens to you, oh, we get to see we really get to see then the true colors of people when it happens to you and yourself. And someone like me wouldn't wish that on you. Because when you know you're a good person and you know that you've never had your head anywhere, you've never had your eyes anywhere, you've never had nothing like that. When you know you're a good person with a clean record and you hear all this chatter, and then people say, well, that's just stardom, that's just being famous, and that bullshit. Excuse my French, but bullshit. That's the stuff we got to get rid of. All right. We can get back to society to where we can all be good people and treat each other nice and treat each other. The old saying, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. We can get back to that. You got to stop all the other stuff, just like the hate group I had 3 years ago. Where are they now? Boy, they dried up quick. See, 3 years ago, quote unquote, Joe looked like president to the normies. So they were real barking. Boy, they were, oh, we're going to. And then they did what? They tried to steal my federal trademark. The idiots didn't even know that the law says it's first to use, not first to file. All right. And when we hit them with that, within 6 days, they filed for a letter of abandonment. And the main ringleader was saying stuff like, oh, a week or two before that, here's a very legal move. Well, it was so legal, you had to file for a letter of abandonment, didn't you? Because you didn't know the law. See, and then the National Guard, the reserve components. I remember the hate groups out there. Oh, look at him, another stupid aircraft post. They're just training. Yeah, they're just training, all right, because now you see the National Guard and reserves doing what? Picking up what? Migrants, illegal migrants in them helicopters, and they hauling their asses off, aren't they? See, so all those veterans, it wasn't a lot, but it was a few out there. Y'all better hope that I'm your brother in arms now and I have a heart for you, because I saved all those messages and all those posts of all that ridicule, and you actually didn't know the damn law because you served for the wrong reasons. See, so this is why people have to empower yourself all times on the front, and know on the front. Don't wait till crap hits the fan, and don't wait to get down the road and be like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that. Because you might be that person that maybe your job depends on it. See, all these people, especially that one is active duty, right? All I got to do is keep harassing him and say, well, he should never keep ranking up because the idiot don't even know the own laws and orders of which he serves under. Why do we want that in the military? We don't, and we shouldn't. So see, all the stuff taking place right now was stuff that was way back there, those visuals. We have reserves and National Guard. They were all over the country, out of their state jurisdictions daily, Monday through Friday. They were under different titles. Title 10, mainly Title 10. There's only one Title 32 order out there right now, and that's the elections. The rest are all Title 10. And so now you're seeing that. So the Venezuela, if there's if there's any kind of airstrike or anything like that, well, guess that the executive order's open with the national emergency. So it's been open. So it goes back to like Epstein. You can pair two completely different categories together. If people are whining and complaining about Venezuela, then where were they when the executive order was written and when the national emergency was launched? Where was that care back then? See, they only know to care when they're told to care, and it's not really care. It's just the same thing with Epstein. If President Trump was in a file, on a list, on a memo, on anything, here's the principle. The principle would be this. President Trump didn't just come out of nowhere overnight, right? He didn't just become president January the 20th, 2025. So if President Trump was a threat to democracy, which we're not a democracy, but let's just use their terminology. If he was a threat to democracy, if he's doing things against the law, if he's acting unconstitutionally, then it seems like if you were the deep state and we were still in the same old days of old, every one of you over 40 years old, you know this, the days of old was every 4 years, every 4 years, every 4 years. Or if a president got a double, every 8, but every 4. It was every 4-year mentality. And it was dog eat dog, mudslinging always. and it was always news, just like you're seeing now, even though I know they're captured and they're just doing that right now until the flip. But it was always some kind of scandal, always something that got you hooked to the TV, got you hooked to the drama, got you hooked to the propaganda. It was a dog eat dog every 4 years, every 4 years. And depending on who was in, and it flipped. The table would flip. If it was a Republican, then there was some Democrat scandal. If it was a Democrat, then there was some Republican scandal. That's not the way our government's supposed to operate whatsoever. So if President Trump was a threat to all that, then he became the threat in 2016, not 2025. So if he was a threat, then Biden, if he was real, I know he wasn't, but for the people listening that don't know that yet, if he was real and if he was president, that means all of them. That means the whole quote unquote Biden administration. That means Kamala, Pelosi, name them, Schumer, Schiff, just keep naming them, Tapper, just name them all. Right. Well, then why didn't they revoke executive orders by President Trump? President Trump showed all of you January the 2025. He revoked at least 100 executive orders in one sitting by quote unquote Joe. Now, to the average person, they're going to say, well, you just said he revoked executive orders, but you turn and say that Biden wasn't real. Well, to you, he is, because you don't know about special operations yet. You don't know about clandestine operations, covert operations, special operations. You don't know about strategic operations, government exile, puppet government. Those are all special operations. Special meaning special. All right. So it takes a certain entity to know those. But then for the normal side, the ones that say, oh, well, you just said, well, they had to use a puppet government because you put in, if President Trump would have done this in the first 8 years, then you wouldn't have a good option to go extend your presidency after the 8th. You wouldn't have had that. It was better to do 4 years emergency, expand your power by law, presidential emergency action document, get 4 years in the middle, and then 4 years on the back end. Then you get 12 to do what would have taken 8 in a normal. It's a genius idea. It's a genius plan, and it's all done lawfully. And we did have legit invasions. Those are all legit, but they happened way before President Trump. So when you go back and apply that President Trump showed you he could revoke 100 executive orders in one sitting, and he's revoked a lot more than that, then why couldn't quote unquote Joe revoke any of President Trump's military orders? Every single Title 10 that the National Guard, the Reserves, and the Marine Corps and the active duty are operating under right now to do with the migration and the southern border, et cetera, all those Title 10s were 2017 to 2021. So why didn't quote unquote Joe revoke any of the military orders? And why did he continue 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies? Each national emergency unlocks 120 plus statutory powers that Congress can't do anything about. And so that's why the liberals, the ones that are legit and real and actually have a brain and know what they're saying per se, even though they're wrong, but the ones who actually are living, breathing, and alive and are spewing, they have no idea what's going on lawfully. And so, all what you're seeing, the Epstein, that's just partial distractions. But then also, you cannot prove a letter. We're at a place where you can't prove it unless it has multiple people around it, because things can pop up out of nowhere with our technology. AI is going to be even worse. So that's why they're saying, hey, look, we're not leaving technology, and we need technology, but it depends on the good guys in control of it. We got to get on the front of that, and we have to control that. The good guys have to control that, but it's not going away. I wish it would. I wish all the technology would go away. Personally, me personally, I would love to go to some old school, pick up the phone. You want to talk trash about me? Come say it to my face, because most aren't going to do that. Most don't have the backbone and the spine to do so. I would love to go back to some old party lines. I didn't even grow up with party lines, but I go back to the party line and be like, hey, Susie, why are you answering my part? Why are you answering on my call? Why are you listening on my phone call? So I would go back to that personally. Now, some of you grew up with party lines. You may be going, oh, heck no. But personally, I would get rid of technology. So all this bull crap, no one can prove on anybody, period. That's why I tell Republicans and I'm like, hey, conservatives, hey, quit acting like the liberals. Stop doing this fire for fire stuff. Don't do that. You know, they're rooting for President Trump to die. You're rooting for Hillary to die. What's the difference? We should get back to do unto others, set principles on punishment. And if someone is sentenced to death, then we should actually feel bad for that, because how did we get to such corruption? How did we get to such lust for money? How did we get to so much lust for material things that you're not taking to the grave with you? We just buried one of my uncles, his great uncles, just a couple days ago. Ain't no grave I've ever been around has no side pocket on it. I ain't ever seen anybody die and take something with them. I ain't seen them buried in their truck. I ain't seen them buried in no Mercedes. I ain't seen them buried in no Lamborghini. I ain't seen them buried in no house. Everybody goes in a box. All right, so now maybe you restart all over and you get to re-energize your life on the other side, and you get to pick up where you left off. So who knows? But over here on this side so far, how did we get so materialistic in America? How did we get so materialistic in the world? But it's mainly America. It's mainly America. It's so materialistic. And so all this stuff is just a bunch of stuff, most of it. Because a lot of it, even if the Epstein stuff, but for the normies, why didn't Joe and Kamala and Pelosi and Schiff and Hillary and Bill and Obama and Michelle and Bush and Jeb and W and why didn't they prosecute President Trump? If he was in there, then all they had to do was open an investigation. They didn't do that. So you always have to go back to that foundation and go, okay, President Trump didn't become a threat in 2025. He became the threat in 2016, 2015. So if he was doing something against the law, you would do what? Pull all your cards out. You would revoke everything. And even if you thought he was going to win again in a normal situation, which it's not, but if you're a normie and you think that, in a normie situation, you wouldn't leave everything open. You'd make him have to go back in 2025 and put everything back in place that he put in place in 2017. See, that's the stuff that gets me when patriots out there are losing their minds or losing hope and faith. I'm like, are you not applying the simple principle? It's that simple. If quote unquote Joe was president, there was nothing he could not do to undo every single thing by President Trump. There's nothing. Now, you might not like it. No one would have. If you're a real patriot, you wouldn't have liked it. But there's nothing lawfully except for throwing a revolution. That's it. But lawfully, there's not a thing in the world that he could not do to revoke everything, terminate everything. Some of those 8 executive orders, which it was 11 of them, but all he had to do was let them automatically terminate. When you continue an executive order with a national emergency, any national emergency requires a pen, paper president. So why was quote unquote Joe continuing the one that Hong Kong, we're taking back the Panama Canal? President Trump said, we're taking back the Panama Canal. We just sent Marine Corps down there, 4,000 troops to Panama just a couple weeks ago. Now, I know most of this already been done, but for visual sake, the normies are seeing 4,000 Marine Corps going to Panama. President Trump said China took over the Panama Canal. Then he said, followed up a week or two later, said it's actually Hong Kong who took over. Well, we have an executive order, July 14th, 2020, 5 years ago, executive order 13936 with the national emergency that President Trump issued. And quote unquote, Joe continued that. Well, there's your Hong Kong. There's your Panama Canal. All your migrants, illegal migrants, all the Title 10 orders, there's executive orders for the southern border. And that it's not just the southern border. They use that terminology, but that's all borders. All right. That's all. And he has a northern border executive. So we have all borders covered. There's your Title 10s, quote unquote Joe. They showed quote unquote Joe. It said the Biden administration. They had to say that during 2023 because they had to keep the normies thinking this was all real. But in 2023, it showed the quote unquote Biden administration sending troops to the border. All right. Same Title 10, though. He don't have a Title 10 there for that. The Title 10 was President Trump's proclamation, February the 5th, 2019, in Proclamation 9844. There's your Title 10, Section 12302, and your Executive Order 13912 from March 27, 2020, Title 10, Section 12302. And then he put a 12304 in there, Civil Affairs, way back in April 2020. That ties into all your defense support of your civil authorities that all these libtards are saying is against the law. No, it is not. It's all over our military laws. It's all over our military publications. It's also all over our codifications. And guess where they were all put into place? Before 2016. None of these laws are President Trump's anything. None of these laws. Not any of your foundational laws of operations. So all that stuff, that's why I tell people you don't even need to follow the Epstein stuff. You don't need to follow any of that. All you need to do is say, well, here's the National Guard, the reserve components, here's your military occupation, your military government, here's your continuity government, here's all that. None of that other stuff matters. Because if it did, again, if you were real and if you were quote unquote Joe, and even if you thought Obama was behind the screen, you would terminate everything by the man you claim is a threat to democracy and doing things against the law and unconstitutionally. You would unravel every single order. They did not do so. Then you got your executive order, your Chinese funding the Chinese military. Executive Order 13959 with the national emergency, November the 12th, 2020. That's the one that ties in all the freezing of the assets. Well, in the new Hunter Biden laptop report, all right, in the new interviews with quote unquote Hunter on Channel 5 on YouTube, there's been 3 of them now. They validate the laptop. They validate that it went from the FBI to Rudy Giuliani, who was one of President Trump's lawyers, and he took it to the Marco Polo group, and they put a book together, 636 pages, all right, with all the emails and the funds and the exchange of money. China, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Romania, Serbia, Mexico. Joe knew. He was all tied in. He was making money just to even it. Hey, Jenny, hey, this is so-and-so. Oh, give me my 10 million. All right. He was making money just for making introductions to people with China. All right. So this is the stuff you need to know. That's the real meat. That's the stuff. And then part of President Trump's emergency powers, one National Emergency Act, one invocation opens 120 powers. In that National Emergency Act, you got your emergency powers, military deployment into the, we're talking about our over here. Okay. And then also freezing the assets, restricting telecommunications. Didn't you just see me post about the appeals court upholding 2 different bans on the AP, the Associated Press? They can't go to the White House or to Mar-a-Lago. There's your restricting telecommunications. That's an emergency power. That's 47 U.S. Code Section 606, which is actually titled War Powers of the President. These are all wartime orders, which means it's a military government, military occupation, continuity government. So all of the Venezuela, there's your national emergency. So that still falls under a wartime order. All right. And all those 24 from 79 to 2016, President Trump's had to deal with. He's told you I've ended 7 wars. Most of those are in executive orders. The Congo being one of those. And then you had Iran being one of those. Syria being one of those. He's already terminated that executive order, one of them. There's another Syrian open, but that one with the national emergency is already terminated. So he's having to fix all that the generals, all of them, they're having to fix all the bull crap that's a swamp left open. That's why this required a puppet government versus going in, giving him 4 more, militarily wise, military law wise. So they do a 4 years, do everything legislatively that needed to be done, and start cleaning out as much as possible. Then you do a puppet government exile. You expand his power. You give all the military the authority, and that's what you saw. That's what you see when I talk about the Secretary of Defense and all the executive orders in place for that. That's what you're seeing and what you saw, and that's why January the 20th, 2021 was a funeral for Joe. That was your visual. That no, if you're following and paying attention, as some patriots are, but if you're normally, you saw everything in real time, and they knew most people weren't going to get out on the streets and fight each other. They knew that because Americans are law-abiding, and they'll whine, complain, and gripe, and they'll argue at the Thanksgiving dinner table, but they're probably more than likely not going to come in there and knock your teeth down your throat. All right, they're going to let you eat your ham and your turkey and have a meal and sit there and gripe, but they're not going to fight you. So they knew most people are just going to go on. Yes, you're always going to have idiots out there. Yes, you're going to have some shootings until we get it down, until we also show what kind of punishment comes with that. All right, till we also show you're not going to get any kind of publicity off of that, and you're going to get your butt at the guillotine or something like that. Other than that, once we show that strength again, most people aren't going to be doing that anymore. But there was going to be some bumps along the way. But that's why they showed you that middle section there. And then, quote unquote, Joe did not have an order of succession with any military domain. The military did not recognize, quote unquote, Joe for the normies. For your patriots, it's a military operation, military government, military occupation, continuity government. All right, that's how you split both. If you put on a Yankees hat or a Boston hat, whichever one you want to make the good guys, that's up to you. But you pick which one's the good and which one's the bad, and you put on the ball cap. All right, your normies, all right, that they saw that, quote unquote, Joe, that in no order of succession whatsoever in any military domain, that means the military does not recognize him. That means if quote unquote Joe would have died, if they'd have made him die to the people, then his order of succession, he didn't have one. The order of succession with the military was still under President Trump. And then that Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, in the very bottom of the executive document where I talk about July the 19th, 2021, where you'd have been only 5.5 months in to quote unquote Joe for the normies, he's relinquishing all his authority, the authority and the functions vested in the president of 1550 to the Secretary of Defense. The president of 1550 is President Donald John Trump. The only time you'll see anything like that, like a memo to the Secretary of State, is when you go back and look at Obama. He gave a memo to Hillary, but it said to do this, it'll be a memo, and then it would be a law or an order prior to that one. Still with the same president, though. It's not a president relinquishing all authority to another president, to the previous president. So that's the dead giveaway in that Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, is down in the executive document. Why would, quote unquote, Joe relinquish all his authority as a president to the Secretary of Defense, the functions of the president of 1550? That's President Donald John Trump. The Secretary of Defense answers directly to the president. So that would have been, quote unquote, Joe telling the Secretary of Defense to listen to President Trump. It's that simple. So all this stuff you're seeing is it's gonna have it either a disclosure right now, either a soft disclosure or a hard disclosure, and then there's going to be a follow-up in the next few days. Like right now, let's see, it's September the 8th or the 9th, whatever day it is. Well, September the 12th, guess what's due? An extension or a resolution to Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency of election interference. I mean, and then when you look at the bigger picture, look at what they're doing with Epstein. Look at all the stuff that they're doing. And then if you know that the subpoenas have been happening in August, September, and then October, everybody's hanging on October because that's where Bill and Hillary are. All right. Nobody's looking at Jeff Sessions in August and some of the others in August and the ones in September. No one's paying attention to that. So see, look at what's building up. It's building up to there's going to be a response to it. President Trump, just a couple weeks ago now, he's posted about the Democrats need to lawyer up. Justice is coming. And you saw headsets just this past week with the 600 judges. All right. And then there's flights going back and forth to Gitmo still. But we also have a lot of activity elsewhere than Northern Mariana Islands and Guam. There's a lot of activity over there. All right. Where our other courts are. The other thing that people forget about, I got to add it in here. It's kind of random, but it's also a point. But every vacation they showed, quote unquote, Joe go on for Christmas was at St. Croix. All right. In December. You know what we have at St. Croix? We have a court there. We have some military courts there. So see, there's a lot of stuff that people just forget about. And I'm like my dad. My dad tells people with Alabama football, he said, I've forgotten more Alabama football than you know. All right. And it's like this stuff is the same way. Like you have to bring something that's like, oh, there's a random nugget I forgot about way back here. Let's put that here. So see, all this stuff's just been theater for the normies. And it's theater for you in the right way. Patriots, it's theater in the other kind of way. All right. Meaning that you don't have to fall for this stuff. It's all part of the clean out. It's all part of the answer. It's all part of that. And so that's where we are. And then the Venezuela stuff, that's going to have to be ended. All that's going to be ended. You don't think it was Patriots? Come on. This man says, I will be exonerated. he didn't come out of billionaire lifestyle and that lifestyle to take on this kind of hate, this kind of ridicule, this kind of mockery, just to put on a notch. Hey, I became president. No, 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 whatsoever. And he didn't do this as a regular president whatsoever. None of this was done as a regular president. The laws show that. The laws show special operations. And I say that so much because, a lot of veterans out there know what's going on, but they don't want a voice. Meaning, like, they don't want a public voice. They don't want a public face. They don't want public acknowledgement and things like that. They're satisfied being in their family, friends, their domain, etc. But I say that too in another manner because it's honoring every veteran out there. Because a lot of veterans do write me. They say, "Man, keep doing what you're doing. Keep giving them hell." You know, and so there's certain people that do need to be there on that frontage. I didn't do it because, I'm a veteran. I went viral. And just the good Lord chose it for me. But at the same time, every patriot out there that's a civilian, veterans not better than you, but every patriot that's a civilian, this is honoring every veteran that's ever set foot in the uniform, raised their right hand and served. Whether they know what's going on or not, it's still to honor every veteran who has fought for this nation. Because everybody, you're only as free as your surroundings allow you to be. And that's by the mindset of people like me, men and women like me, who think like that, who know how to live and let live, who know how to safeguard all the freedoms, but also allow you to be who you are in the capacity of what you are without cramming it down other people's throats. Right? There is a way to do that. And there's a way to have a clean, functioning government, small, not as big, small federal, and then have your states and not have them as big either, because you don't want to have power tripping governors and power trippers in the state either. But there's a way to bring that back down and clean out all, and that's what's been taking place. And it was going to be a little bumpy, no doubt, because again, people have been so used to the dog eat dog, so used to the mudslinging, so used to people saying stuff without backing it up. All right. And President Trump, though, told everybody that on the 2016 campaign trail. He specifically said, when Jeb Bush said, "Who's going to vote for you? Who's going to back you? Who's going to support you?" He said, "Well, that's a loaded question, Jeb. That's more than one question. And if the moderators give me time, I'll answer that." He said, "One, the American people are going to vote for me because they're tired of bullshit politicians like you. Every single one of you get on this stage and you tell the American people what they want to hear, and you never back it up." So, see, consistency. And the only way to know that someone's consistent and working for you, not trying to talk for you, but someone standing beside you, but yes, maybe a little bit bigger in stature, maybe a little bit smarter, more IQ, but still beside you, it's to know the laws and the orders of this nation and what makes our nation function and thrive and operate. Because we have built up to where we have to have that little thing called green stamp. I had a cousin used to call it a green stamp. We got to have that little thing called a dollar right now until that changes, if we ever change that. All right. We have to have that to live, to function, and survive. See, what Americans don't ever apply is if all of a sudden all the banks just shut down, and we're talking about without, now I'm not trying to scare people, this ain't that, and it ain't going to happen. So they don't run off and say some BS about that. I'm just making an example that people never think of stuff like this. People never think about if all of a sudden all the big stores, all the big groceries, all the big markets all of a sudden shut down and all your bank systems shut down and everybody just said, "All right, the heck with it. Y'all fend for yourselves." Boy, I mean, 85% of America in the 80s were farmers, whether it was 1 acre to 100,000. Now it's probably probably 2 or 5%. Who knows what the number is? But then you look at the number of people who could not survive off the land, who can't plant anything, the ones who out there give me hell about killing a deer and eating it. I mean, everything I harvest, I eat. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. We have so many softies in America. We have so many people who just forget just 100 years ago, my grandma and grandpa didn't have air conditioning. You know, I'm burning my ass off right now. Excuse my French again, but right now I'm sweating like a dog in a Chinese restaurant. All right. And it's hot down here. And I'm going to tell you what, right now, I can tell you straight up, I would never be able to do without air conditioning. and central air and heat, but I wouldn't be able to do without heat, even in the wintertime. All right. And that's being straight up honest. It's being funny, but it's also being honest. And my grandpa used to say this years ago. Someone said, "Oh, I wish I lived in old days." He's like, "No, you don't." Now, they didn't know that they didn't know, because they didn't have what they didn't have yet. They didn't have air conditioning. It wasn't a thing, that one particular grandfather. But once you have it, you ain't going back, right? So it's kind of, you got to apply that to today. Look at all the people who ain't ever had. Like, they don't know that what they never had, right? They don't know that. So we live in a society. I heard last night where it was on something on TV about the Buffalo Bills. They're moving to a new stadium. It costs $2 billion. We're not a broke economy, ladies and gentlemen. And during COVID, what did people have time for? The lake, bars, and parties. Even during the recession of 2008, people were cut back on their food to make time for their beer, their alcohol, their cigarettes, their fun, their parties, their lake, their beach. And most of those people are the people who whine, complain, and gripe about gas and the economy and cost. So, see, we're a spoiled nation. And most of the people whining and complaining are those people who have everything tenfold and then some. And those are the same people, though, who will drive by a homeless person. Now, you know, I feel bad for some homeless people, but there's nothing I can do for them except for, okay, we have a government now, President Donald John Trump, and the military, who's rescuing them, and they're putting them up in these buildings and these facilities. And then we've got to get back to a nation that says, look, we have to get to a place somehow where we are with technology and go, okay, you have to have some level of ambition. All right, you have to have something. Because a lot of people go to the streets because they absolutely are lazy. Let's just be honest. Not all are out there because they had a bad strand of bad luck or something. A lot of people are lazy. They want handouts. They want you to gimme reparations and all these other things. And there's a certain group of people out there who think like that. And they bark the loudest, and those are the ones who will push you out of the way on Black Friday. Those are the kind who will knock you out for a toy at Toys R Us or whatever, right? Those are the kind of mentalities that we have dealt with. And those are the ones that we gave more leeway to versus going, nope, that ain't how this operates. That ain't how this functions. Welfare. We created a system that was created for good, but what did man do to it? Corrupt it. What's the Bible say? Well, did the Bible have a passage about that or something like that? Don't the Bible say something about that? About, that, you know, what man makes evil, God can make for good. Well, flip that around. What God meant for good, man does what? Have some men find a way to make it evil. So, I mean, it's funny how the Bible always plays out, and the atheists out there say it's all hogwash. But it's funny how that always comes back. And the Bible says about the money. It's not money. It's the lust of money. Now, I'm not a preacher. I didn't come here to preach. But see, all this stuff ties into that. And President Trump, to the liberals, looks like this barbaric, authoritarian, fascist dictator. And then, like, to a guy like me, I'm going, he's done every single thing to the standard of the laws and orders that were already in law long before he even came about. And it's just because you've never seen the laws and the orders enforced and upheld and applied as they're supposed to, as prescribed on paper. And so that's what everybody's watching right now. Now, I don't know if I missed anything. Venezuela, Bill Gates.
You did great.
What did I miss? Did I miss one? Let's see.
Well, you did, but you did good. I mean, you tied all of that in together. I'm just sitting here listening to you rant and go on about it, and you just tied it all together. So you did great. But you, and I know I kind of shot that off to you real quickly, but Trump's post regarding the jabs, that he's basically coming out telling everybody they're all poison. That was huge.
And two, that was a video from like 1987 to 91, somewhere back in there. I can make y'all feel old really quick. I mean, I was 4 years old in 1987. So I mean, you know, it's not like he's sharing something that was just in the last few years, right? He's not sharing some quote unquote patriot that may deserve it. He's sharing something from way back. and showing that what a lot of you, there's a lot of patriots that have been. I mean, I've met Dr. Artists, and I've met a lot of people on the medical side that have been studying that for a long time, the health and um, what's good for you, what's not good for you. I know Wasim Syed up in New York, and has a big Instagram channel and whatnot. And there's a lot of people in the health world that's you've been knowing this, so it's your validation. That's your, whatever. Sip your mimosa or whatever's healthy for you. We better keep on the health thing here, but still, that's what that is. I mean, that is your straight up validation, and it also what may I think where people get me wrong sometimes, or maybe perceive me the wrong way, is because I know what God did with me now. I know why he pulled me out of the military the way he did it, and where he put me right here and what we're battling right now. It was way more important for God to do what he did with me that way. And then also in everybody that I've met, everybody has some kind of lane and channel like that I know are good people. Well, so in 2020, I mean, I know a lot of patriots in here the same way, because that's why we're all here. That's why we're all congregated. But I know for a fact what I was doing. I was already losing friends. I was getting all the comments about, well, what are you doing talking to me if you're so big, hot shot, and all that. I mean, I heard it all. And that was just your mediocre stuff. That wasn't even like that. I mean, I heard a lot of stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, if you'll talk to me that way, veteran or not, it doesn't matter. But I'm sitting there, man, I'm like, has it ever dawned on you that maybe that someone does actually know? I mean, especially when you're quoting laws and orders, and I stayed pretty even keel like this, where I was just like, well, don't you think though that someone can know, like something? And I mean, you talking about mad people, and I'm like, you're mad over nothing. Like you're mad over someone just trying to say, look, I mean, you want me to hear your side? So I was one of those in 2020 where I never wore a mask. And I love this because my dad, he may be listening and he can take it because we have fun with this. But we went to a store in 2021, actually. We went into this store and they were all about your mask. And I walked in just like I own the place. And we had made the full circle and we're coming out. But one of the little girls at the front, the cashier, had seen me. And I just kept walking. It avoided them, right? Well, they went and got their manager. And here comes the manager. And the manager was a pronoun. It was an it. I'm pretty sure I know what it was and what it was trying to look like, but it was a pronoun. And I just, I had my ID, my certain ID, and I flipped it up in their face. I'm like, look, I'm like, we're already on our way out. No need for you to come out. I'm like, but by the way, let me tell you what the law says. I don't care what your employer says. I don't care what your CEO, CFO, COO, any of them. I don't care what your board. I don't care. Here's what the law says. And anyway, sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I said, all right, you just power tripping now because I was already on the way out. Well, when I went out the door, I lost it. Oh, it just hit me. Dad went onto the vehicle. I'm like, nope. And I walked right back in that store and I slammed my fist on the wall. And I'm like, do you know why the United States military went to Iraq and Afghanistan? Do you know what they were doing? Do you know that women just now in Saudi Arabia got their driver's licenses just in 2017? Can you imagine living your whole life as a female? Can you imagine in 2017 being a female just now being able to get your driver's license? Do you not know what the military does? Do you not understand what liberation is? Do you not understand what real suppression is? Do you not understand that a lot of these Muslims have made their women wear these masks? And here you are over here in America, in the greatest nation of all, and here you are falling for it because of some quote unquote pandemic. I'm like, you are some pathetic people. You are pathetic. And if I ever see any of your faces, and if I ever blow up anywhere, somehow, someday on social media, I'm going to remember you. And I hope you remember me because you're going to remember me. This was back in 2021. This is before anything with my social media, etc. And that was one. And I did it at the VA. And I just saw that girl the other day, the nurse, and that she was like, well, how's it going? I said, I think it's going pretty good. Don't you think? I said, I noticed something too. I noticed in the lobby out there, I was wondering, where can I get my vaccine? Where can I get the shot? Because I don't see any posters anywhere for the vaccine, the jab. All I see is get your flu shot. I'm just wondering, how did we eradicate the flu in 2020? Nowhere could you find a sign for the flu, and it was get your COVID vaccine. And now all of a sudden, we done eradicated COVID, and we got the flu back. I said all that just about a month ago in there. And
it's true. It's true, though.
It's true. And so, like, if you're a patriot, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the one that gives you the pass. I hear other patriots out there, oh, we got to be compassionate. We got to have them run over here. I'm the polar opposite. I'm like kind of like, I got the cigarette lighter under your rear going, tell them, be a smart ass. Now's your time to be like, oh, where did the flu go? Yeah, I'm like Jim Brewer. I guess got that personality. I'm just like, where did the flu go? How did we eradicate one, pick up one, eradicate the other one, and pick up the other one again? I'm that person. So I'm the one that's like I'll light the fire under your rear, and I'll give you a cake when you come back. Even if you run into a big old hornet's nest of hate, I'll be running. I'll welcome you, welcome arms. Hey, but you gave them hell, though. You stirred them up, right? I'm that person, because that's what President Trump's post is. That's your vindication, your validation for being in that tiny, tiny percentile that stood up in 2020, 2021. And I've managed so far, I've almost slipped up. I don't know how I haven't. Every veteran knows this too, but I haven't slipped up and said the F-bomb yet. And I don't know how, because sometimes it does seem fun to say. But, you know, that's just one of those where it's like you just want to be like, what the? But you can't do that. I know. So anyway, you know, it's your vindication, it's your validation, and then, I know I was going with that F-bomb thing. Was I saw a meme back in 2023, 4, somewhere in there, and it was about Ukraine, and it said, if you didn't stand up for the children during COVID, you can shut the F up about Ukraine. Well, I think you can erase Ukraine now and just put everything else in there, like make it one big category. Like, if you didn't stand up for the children in 2020, and if you're one of those people who say, well, my employer made me, you failed the test. You failed. It's why I bring up the movie Rudy. A lot of you who've seen the movie Rudy, the walk on at Notre Dame, and he walked on, and he'd go to the little board every weekend for 4 years. He never saw his name on the dress out list. He quit the game before the last game. Quit. I hope I'm not ruining the movie for if you've never seen it, but whatever. Quit before the last game. He ran into he knew a guy, and the guy told him, you don't know something about me. And he was a player, and he said, I quit because I was mad. And he's like, you'll regret it the rest of your life. He goes back. Well, the last game, he's looking at the board. Name's not on there. The starting quarterback, this is a true story. Starting quarterback, starting running back, the whole team, but starting with the starters and the star players. They took their jerseys one by one. Quarterback goes in the coach's office. Parsegian, who was a very famous Notre Dame figure, he walked in there and said, Coach, if Rudy don't play, I don't play. Running back walked in there. Rudy don't play, I don't play. They kept throwing their jerseys on the desk, and the coach was, what? You're crazy. You're a first-team All-American. Every player walked in there. They get into the game. They let him dress out. His buddy in the stands start chanting, Rudy, Rudy. And pretty soon, everybody around him, they didn't even know who he was, but they just started going, Rudy. And then everybody around him started going, Rudy. Before you know it, the whole stadium's chanting, Rudy, Rudy, Rudy. And then the assistant coach, who was on the side, looked down at the head coach and opened his arms up like, why won't you let him in the game? And he finally goes, waves them in. Last play of the game of his whole career at Notre Dame. Last play. They were winning the game, but it still doesn't matter. Snapped the ball, and Rudy made the tackle. All right. Everybody in this nation should have looked like that team during COVID. If your boss or whoever said you got to do it, even if you wanted to take it, if you were one of those who wanted to take it, you still should have stood up with the ones who didn't. But you didn't, and you failed the damn test. See, and that's the stuff that ticks me off. That's the stuff that shows you're not a warrior if you didn't do that. And that's the stuff that irks me. My great uncle, who just passed this week, who was an Air Force veteran. So he went every single day when my great aunt had Alzheimer's. Every single day. It's on record. He never missed a day for 10 years straight. He drove 50 miles round trip every day, sat all day with my great aunt who had Alzheimer's. He made sure she was fed. He made sure she was bathed every day for 10 years straight until she passed. And someone asked him a question. He said, well, she may not know who I am, but I know who she is. He sat there every day, had to watch through a freaking window her pass away because of sissies in this nation who wouldn't stand up and don't know the laws. So see, that's why you got to have attitude. And if someone has a problem with my attitude, then they got a problem, and they are the problem. Because every nursing staff in this nation, you're supposed to know this stuff. You should know this stuff. Doctors, board of trustees, whatever it may be, governors, mayors, everyone who went against the laws of President Trump, when he said hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine, he said it over and over. And every patriot, I've heard patriots in the last year or two still arguing this. Listen to the commander. He told you in press conferences, hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine and Z-Pack if your heart can handle it. He never said anything about the jab or a vaccine. And then the vaccine just happens to be a term like an automobile. That don't tell you that it's a Ram or a Ford or a Chevy. Automobile just means it's an automobile. All right. What brand of automobile do you have? Oh, well, I have a Ram, or I have a Ford. I have a Chevy. Well, what kind of, what's your model of Chevy? Well, I have a Chevy 1500. I have a Ford F-150. See, people have lost terminology in this nation. And President Trump never said anything. And then when he said the word Pfizer, the one time he said Pfizer's working on a vaccine. It should be ready in 14 to 16 months out. It's not ready yet. So when Pfizer did what? When they showed that they had a quote-unquote vaccine, what did they do? They went against what? Military, wartime, president orders. So see, that's why everybody has to know this stuff. And so I get passionate for everybody out there. And we have to have this same attitude. Because multiple people died, and there's a lot of people whose blood's on certain hands and don't want to account for it. Don't they go, oh, well, I didn't know. No, yes, you could have known. Everybody can know what I know because that's what the commander's working with. I didn't write these laws. I didn't pass them, but everybody can know it. And so that's why I show the passion I do, because I can't, if that would have been which I'm not married, but if that had been my mama, my daddy, I'd been in jail. I'd have been in jail. I wouldn't, there's no way in hell I'd be watching through a window someone that I love pass away. There's no way. That carries the same weight as 9/11, knowing that people had to say, I can either burn up or I can jump and take a chance on living, hitting the ground. If you don't get sick to your stomach over that, no matter until you find out what the real answer was, which I know and certain people do, but still, until you know the sickness you should feel in your stomach for that should be exactly what mine feels. Because there's no way, even a friend, there's no way. That would have been any of my buddies from the military. There's no way in hell I'm looking from a window. There's no way. And they couldn't even say, well, we'll crack it for you. We'll open. No, I'm going to be in there. I'm holding someone's hand. I'm going to be right there by that bed. If you don't have that attitude, and see, during that time period, oh, my Lord, nurses, I heard nurses, hey, you didn't go to nursing school. How can you know anything about medicine and medicine? You've heard it. A lot of people in this podcast heard it. You've heard it. And if you were a patriot and you were giving them hell and you were raising hell and you're doing this, salute to you. But look at all the people who didn't. A mandate's not a law. A decree is not a law. Compulsory. None of those are laws. None of that. You didn't have to do any of that. And if everybody would have stood up together, you'd have passed the test. You'd have passed. And a lot of these things could move a lot quicker. But see, you're showing the commanders and the command teams up there that, boy, holy crap, Americans they look like penguins in Jamaica. They look like polar bears in South Mississippi. I mean, it's that bad. So a lot of this is the fault of Americans being so brainwashed and controlled that they've had to go so slow with some of this stuff just because of that. So, and I know it's not patriots. So, but that's why you're a patriot and you're having to twiddle your thumbs and go, oh gosh, yeah, that's what everybody's doing.
Well, Derek, you're spot on, because there's so many people out there that say, well, I had to do it because it was mandated. I'm like, bullshit. You can't mandate something that, one, isn't law, and two, goes against the Constitution. Well, they still fight against it, right?
They fight against it. Yeah,
they
fight.
Yeah, they fight against it. And I'm like, you know what? You're employable anywhere. You can go to school anywhere. If somebody's going to make you do that because either you do it or you get kicked out of school or you don't have a job, leave the job, leave the school. So, and then now you have
if everybody would have walked out. That's the other thing. If everybody walked out, then that employer, all of a sudden, especially if it was a product, then they're going to take a massive hit, because the odds that they could replace with the same quality of people to get that goal-oriented, whatever it is, even a service, but a product even more, there's the bosses would have had to be like, oh, okay, come back. If everybody would have walked out. But what ended up happening, one or two people lost their jobs because they had the spine, but then the rest got to keep theirs. And then, again, the one or two people had to suffer because nobody stood up. Instead of flipping it back on the boss or the CEO or the CFO or the, whatever, president, founder, flipping it back on them and going, okay, well, deuces, we'll see y'all later. If everybody would have staged the walkout, then boom. Got them.
And what everybody, you need to understand too, what has transpired with this whole thing with Trump doing that post demanding the release of the truth of these jabs on his Truth Social. Then you have Robert F. Kennedy coming out annihilating the Senate, saying, basically calling out everybody that got paid to play and how much they got, right? And then you have Trump with the dinner with Gates and Zuckerberg. Don't think for a hot second, everybody, that this is not in our faces, because we know Gates, we know Zuckerberg, we're all a part of it. Gates has harmed many people pushing these jabs, and this is just
big time. And
this
see,
is
and then you use that and you flip that on people. See, it's perfect.
This is Trump showing you who is in control. He's letting you know when he says, I caught them all, I have it all. He's showing you, I've got it. I'm controlling them now. So have some solace in that, everybody. I mean, I don't know what you think about that, but I think it's pretty obvious to us that he's telling us who's in control.
Well, what's cool about it, in part 2 of my book, part 2, I went into the 4 components that Bill Gates, his Gavi, and a few other things tied in, right? UNICEF, all those. I showed where, all right, it's special operations, first off, ladies and gentlemen. That's 100% correct. They're using pawns and big names. And then when Bill Gates and Zuckerberg and Bezos, who's also flipped and turned, when all these people, see, they were a product of defunding the Chinese Communist military, because Zuckerberg's married to a Chinese. All right. So whenever you go look and study what I put in that book, is this, you think about this, you really, really think about it. All right. They raised $400 billion on the side, not their own. All right. Gates and his crews, the UNICEF and Gavi and a bunch of others. All right. They raised $400 billion for jabs. All right. Vaccines. This was back in 2011 and 12. A lot of people know that on the front, but when you go dig deeper, but then you apply just some common sense. You go, okay, if you can raise $400 billion and you claim you care about people in the world, you don't go create a residual, because that's what a vaccine was. Even though it said they were only making 37 cents out of the whatever it was to manufacture it, maybe $1, $1.25. I can't remember what it was. But when you think of their little system they created, 37 cents, well, depends on how many doctors were buying these. And then it depends on what they were paying the doctors. So they had their own little system cut out. Right? $400 billion. You take $400 billion and you go to third world nations. You go to all these countries, especially the countries in Africa where they were performing all these quote unquote vaccine testing, guinea pigging. Well, you go over there and you clean out the water systems. You do what Steve's doing with just drew a blank of the podcast. I can't think of his name right now, but anyway, that you go into a third world country and you fix their water systems. You go in there, and these countries aren't like Americans. They live in huts, and it don't take much to make those people happy. You go in there and you make their livelihood better. You don't go into and I hate it. I mean, I don't hate it in one way, but President Trump called these countries, shit, basically. Right? Well, he's talking about the environment around them and what they live in and the filth and the nastiness and all the stuff that they look filthy. And it's because they live in filth. All right. And so if you have $400 billion, you don't go in there and create a vaccine when they're still drinking filthy water and dirty water. You go in there and you clean out the water systems. It don't cost that much. Especially when you get farmers involved, you get people who know how to irrigate, pull water, drill wells, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Especially in the South, we still have a lot of wells that are drilled. So there's ways to you take $400 billion that's outside of their personal money. So that right there shows you, follow the money, like President Trump said. People have forgotten a lot of the early slogans of President Trump, that they've already followed the money. They've already found the money. We have it all. We caught them all. And so now it's the flippage. And the only way to exonerate him is to take people that you thought were not good people and you flip it. So you got to look at the future. You got to look way out the road and go, okay, the goal of this is not for us to keep arguing with liberals. It's not to keep arguing with each other, the people who are arguing. All right, the goal is to go, let's get to a place where, man, I can walk down the street, not have to worry about looking over my shoulder. You can have your friends, your family, and not have to worry about anything. You can do unto others. You can, and there can be people who do think completely opposite of you, but they let you think the way you think and live happily ever after. And you let them think that. The mind your own business, you won't be minding mine. There's a way to do all. That's what's going to happen. So a lot of rhinos are still in the mindset of the dog eat dog. And Americans do love some drama. Let's be honest. And if we can eliminate that off of TV and get back to some wholesome stuff, Instagram and all these other things, we got a lot to clean out with the way people, the visuals that people give, the filth and corruption out there. There's a lot of websites that need to be cleaned up. There's a lot of things that need to be cleaned out. So everything had to be done top to bottom, the most priority up top, work its way down. And that's what you've been seeing. So now they're taking key play. Jeb Bush, go back and watch the debate with Jeb and President Trump in 2016. You couldn't hardly get a word in there. It was like, most people were complaining back then, Republicans and Democrats, like, they were arguing so much you couldn't even hear. Well, but still President Trump, he was taking them all on for a reason. That was a visual. You don't see any of those people. Well, when President Trump took out the nuclear facilities in Iran, who congratulated him? Jeb Bush. So there's one domino, and it's going to keep growing like that. But the end goal is for everybody to get all this crap out of politics, get politics out of everything, have a government that we control, we the people, get it back to things that we can control, eliminate laws we don't need, even in your state. Some of you live all over. So there's things that Alabama needs that Missouri don't. There's things that Missouri needs that Minnesota don't. So every state has a level. So when you know your levels, so that's what they're doing. They had to get all this big government. That's why they've been, the Doge has been cutting a lot of things out. And so you hear people whining and complaining. Well, there are jobs you get on LinkedIn or some of those other websites out there. There are job titles. It was like, what is that? I mean, we have so much stuff in this country that it's like, my grandpa, if you pull one of them out of the graveyard and said, hey, do you want to comb the hair of a pet goldfish for a living? How would you like that? Like, how much do I get paid? Just about $10 an hour. So I get to pet the hair. I can just comb the hair of a goldfish all day. Yep, that's it. I mean, there's jobs out there I've heard of. I'm like, what is that? So we got to eliminate stuff in this nation and get back to real life, real common sense, and get back to farming, get back to wholesome, RFK and all what they're talking about. And now all these shots and these vaccines, all this stuff. It's like I tell people, though, I love that meme out there that said, hey, did you take your vitamins this morning? And they'll say, no, why? Well, if you didn't take yours, mine don't work. So, and that's the way I feel about it. Same thing about the vaccine. People's like, why are you so worried about me? Right? Why are you so worried about me if I took it or not? Like, why are you all of a sudden care about me? If I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Then if you are against my ideology, then you probably want me dead. So you probably should be like, hey, don't wear your mask. Yeah, keep not wearing your mask. That's what they should have been like, So anyway,
So Derek, we got a few more minutes left. So now we know September 11th is coming up right here on Thursday. In your opinion, because I think we're going to start seeing these bumpy roads that we've been anticipating. In your opinion, what do you think we are going to see here in the coming days, weeks, months, on into the fall, holidays, and all that stuff? What do you think?
Well, I personally, I'm still at now. There's no way to know what commanders are doing because that's why they're commanders, and that's why when you're in certain structure and ranks and levels, I don't do a lot. Obviously, I don't never do predictions and stuff, but still, you have your executive order 13848 that's due for resolution or continuation. And occasionally you see people on X, the big paid opposition accounts, which a lot of those are also paid opposition, but also
Yep.
They're in positions though to do so as well from the good guys. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them are where it brings the people who are on that side to whenever it's unveiled. But they're saying, President Trump cheated in the election 2024. Well, that's the key thing that I show people right there, especially if you're a patriot or if you're on the fence. That's the key one that shows that it ties it all in. Even though the other Title 10 orders should, and once you study what a government exile is and puppet government, once you know those are not far-fetched and they sound old fogey, but they're not. They're tactics. They're special operations. And most of these have been covert, clandestine operations because you couldn't have people getting in the way. You couldn't have protesters getting in the way. You couldn't have any form of that getting in the way. So most everything's been done right in front of you. You wouldn't even realize it. The military can work that effectively and efficiently right in front of you, and you never know it. But the Title 32 was hidden for a while, actually. It's kind of funny. They hide certain things. Right now, there's certain publications you can't pull up, which is kind of hilarious in another way. It says page not found. But they're there, and they're not being eliminated on any bad reasons. They could actually be being updated, but they're still being removed on purpose for certain things, get high volumes of traffic, especially when I post them, they get high volumes over there. But Title 32, the only Title 32 order in place. So like that one podcast I did yesterday where I was roasting this liberal on X, and I never give their name, but saying that, president can't send in the National Guard without the consent of the governor. That's false. And what they're trying to quote is Title 32, Section 502. And that's false. It doesn't mean that. You got to go read Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 and 16 of the Constitution and read what it says. The governors still have to consent to Congress. That's just how that works. And President Trump has a congressional order in. That's what Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 is. Title 50 is Congress. Title 50 is Secretary of Defense. That's not Article 2. That's Article 1. So there's where President Trump's foundational, what are you going to call it, validation, even though it's an operation. But for the people that don't know that, you say, well, there it is. Obama don't have one. Obama has no War Powers Act, anything. And he murdered bin Laden and Gaddafi. And that's all going to come out. But the Title 32 in place for the elections is what shows it all. So in 2018, this same executive order we're talking about that's due up in a few days, because it was extended for a year in 2024. So that means somewhere between September the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, it can't go past the 12th without a resolution. And if it goes, let's say there's not a continuation order for it, then that means there's a resolution coming, which is even better, because that's what every patriot's looking for, because that will be your disclosure of what took place in all the elections. I don't know where the commanders are with what they're planning on doing with the September and October, but when President Trump says justice is coming, well, there is absolutely no way that we could go on into the future. I'm talking about 10, 15, 20 years without there being a revelation of that justice, and also those visuals, and then the closure of this continuity government, this military occupation. It can't be drug out that long. So what they're doing with the whole Epstein thing is getting all the left stirred up, because they're thinking, oh, we got him now. And you got to remember one of, I don't know, I can't remember his name right off the bat, his full name, but I've seen one of President Trump's best friends in a little tiny room, and he spoke, and he said there's one, and he's the only one who can call him Donnie to this day. He don't call him president, he can call him Donnie. He said there's one thing people forget about my friend Don. He said right when he looks like he's going to lose, he roars back and he wins. And see, so all these things they're talking about Epstein right now, the other topic they're talking about is where President Trump beat out Epstein. That's what's wrong with friends. Look at all this that they're presenting to you. There's that. You got to look at this executive order that's due. It's a very key order that can tie anything to the election fraud, election interference. When President Trump said, "What would it look like if I prosecuted the former First Lady of the President of the United States?" Right, and he called her beautiful Hillary. I mean, there ain't, you know, President Trump, like, there ain't nothing beautiful about Hillary. Let's go ahead. Let's just be honest. There ain't enough Jack Daniels in Tennessee. there ain't enough wine and France. There ain't enough, just name it, tequila in Mexico. There ain't enough to make her pretty. All right. So you know that, and you apply that. And what the liberals are saying, they're building this narrative on their side. And for your side, especially if you're a patriot, you just got to know that, look, there has to be resolutions to that. And that's when you go back to your faith and know that President Trump didn't do all this. He didn't come out of billionaire status to take on this hate, ridicule, mockery, even in a normal status, even in a normal presidency. He didn't do all this to do that, just to be president, take on the hate, get shot at, have to run here, have to hide here, have to do that. He didn't do all that for that. So when you apply that, then go back, what ties it in is the Title 32 by Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis, Marine Corps General, right? They invoked Title 32 for the elections. So it showed the National Guard on nationalguard.mil 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024. Well, so here's what you have to do. If you're a rhino, or if you're a liberal, you'd have to say that President Trump set his own demise up. You had to say President Trump to declare an emergency for election interference, and then he set his own demise up if he cheated in 2024. That would be. So you know that what's going off the that completely that I think or that federal for each, but you if official dude is for that. no. The only order in place is President Trump in 2018. There's not a Title 32 for quote unquote Jews, the 2022 and 2024. You don't have two options. You either know, believe veterans who know, not who can't know that. Either that big picture, the Title 32 is one little super and one little section. You either believe and know about President Trump being the wartime president, and then knowing that that order don't transfer over to the next president, because there's also other things with the Title 10 and the presidential emergency action documents that expand the power of the president as prescribed by law, and President Trump and them did that. Then you apply all the things that quote unquote Joe continued, but then you apply that he didn't have an order of succession with any military domain, and then he gave up his authority in the executive documents of Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. When you apply all those things, then you go back to that Title 32 in 2018, and then you know that that Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency, there's another national emergency that invoked all those 120 statutory powers. So all those powers are those emergency powers by a president. There goes your military deployments again with your National Guard, your reserve components, and the funding for those. And then there goes your freezing of the assets. There goes your restricting the telecommunications. So when you know those emergency powers, President Trump's shown you every single one of those, and they don't transfer over. But even if they did, if they were a transferable, then quote unquote Joe and Kamala, and even if you thought Obama was pulling the strings, they would have revoked every single thing. They would have terminated everything, because all of those continued over just to hand back to President Trump January the 2025. That's handing a big box with a red bow on it saying, here you go, we didn't terminate these, but by the way, we're going to call you a dictator and a fascist and all these other things just for propaganda. We're going to smear you in the news, but here you go, keep them going. So and there was no way around president because in their ways the global swamp. So that top to that's it. That's the just either have continue or now there is a continuation. It'll probably be for no. It was that portion of this ready to show the election number, etc. And you have your subpoenas in there. The biggest subpoenas are not covered Bill and Hillary. And you got Rock, and both of them have like 155 million followers. That's 46% of population. And all the Russiagate hitting, all of the DNI, all of the intelligence evidence, and all the ties with Obama and the fake dossier and all of that, Obama has not said one thing to defend his quote unquote legacy on X about that. And the last I checked, she may have posted since now, but the last I checked, Michelle hadn't posted since June the 19th. Comey hadn't posted since June the 10th. And see, there's a video floating around on quote unquote mainstream media of Comey talking about his daughter being fired and all these other things. Why isn't it on his personal X account? Why? Where you have millions of followers. Why hasn't he posted? Why haven't they posted? So see, it shows you, like, if you have control of your social media, then you would be defending your legacy, because that would be the old school, what you've seen. We all grew up in it. Every one of us, again, over 40 years old, we've seen everybody defend themselves at some capacity, especially since social media. They take to their social media instantly.
And common sense right there would tell everybody that they're not walking freely of these streets, whether they've been dealt with, apprehended, whatever. Because just know, guys, with those indictments, those 500,000 plus, they didn't just start unsealing them here since Trump's been
No,
reelected.
Lord, no.
Each one of those contained up to 99 people. So they've been working on this for a while, everybody. So
Yeah.
get excited and know we're winning, and look at all the minutia stuff is just that, and kind of sit back, enjoy the show. I know people sometimes hate that, but it's literally scripted. I'm going to send you a video. Maybe you've already seen it, Derek, of that gal that accused Trump of raping her. How literally she said, "Oh, it was all scripted," and she was just talking about, I had to look, excuse my language, I had to look fuckable in order to make it seem real. So they hired them, say makeup artist, the hairdresser, all this stuff to do her
Yeah.
all up through that whole entire thing. So with that, everybody, Derek's here with us every 2 weeks. Derek, you want to say any closing thoughts?
Well, it's just like this. This is what I tell people. I just thought of this analogy. I'm random like this, but this is what I tell people. If you want to know, you can know. And everything's public. It's all lawful. Everything's been done lawful. But what I show you is basically like whatever you like out there. I'll show you something that's probably going to get me in trouble with RFK, but whatever. I'll have to deal with it. We all have interventions we need, but I love Krispy Kreme donuts, and I love the chocolate glazed. I mean, I would drive 100 miles for Krispy Kreme just about. I mean, that's my nemesis. All right, so if I somehow found how to make my own just exactly like Krispy Kreme with the chocolate glaze, you think I'm gonna go back to Krispy Kreme? Heck no, I'm gonna be making them on my own. So see, that's kind of like knowing what President Trump's working with. You should just want to know what he's working with. You don't have to go out there rabbit holing certain things, because what rabbit holing sometimes
Exactly.
what rabbit holing can do, it can favor more of what you think that you want out of everything. All right. It's like I tell people, if you believe in aliens and ghosts, then fine. I'm not gonna make fun of you, because I'm not that kind of person that's gonna tell you what you can't believe and what you can't read and what you can't. But if you want to be clear with clarity, no stress, no drama, no propaganda, you want to smile all the time, feel free all the time, and walk around with a grin on your face and just knowing that you know, then that's
Follow
knowing what the
Trump.
commander's working with. That's right. And
Follow
then
Trump.
finding someone like me who can break it down, because right now it is a special operation, and they're not done with it. We're still in a partial continuity government. We're not done with it. So and he knows what I'm saying. I mean, that's the only reason I've been able to go to Mar-a-Lago and Trump International and Trump Doral and all those things, because of the members that know me. And they read and study. And let me tell you, there's a lot of people who do on the backside too, who are big and famous, who just don't say anything either. So not everybody's crazy, and it's all gonna unveil itself. But if you want to be in that category, that's what you got to do. You got to have your own recipe, and your own recipe needs to be what the commander's working with, and the people who work with the commander, and also are in those operations.
Amen. Amen. Well done again, Derek. Oh my gosh, it's just everything is coming to fruition, everybody. Everything that Derek has been teaching us and showing us with what Trump has already done with the executive orders and the laws and orders. We're being that vindication and validation is there, everybody. So, Derek, once again, great show. I appreciate you, my friend. Keep up the great work. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
I will be ready. I'll be here.
Brace yourselves, people. I do believe with just what Derek is saying, what Juan has been telling me, I do believe we're going to start seeing some stuff. So just brace yourself, whatever that may be. Be prepared. However prepared you can be, head on a swivel, but get excited. We're coming into brighter days. So, Derek, God bless you. We'll talk to you soon. And everybody, have a great rest of your evening. And we'll see you back here on tomorrow. We'll have Rick Anson from Brain IQ Health, All Natural Supplements, talking about the all natural world. And he actually works with the Maha team over there. So he's got a lot of great information. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you, Derek.
Sounds good. Thank you. See you guys soon.
Have a great day or great evening. I hear the frogs in the background and the crickets.
Oh yeah, and the mosquitoes are biting my legs right now.
Oh, gross.
Yeah,
Bye, Derek.
that's how much I love you guys.
Oh, we love you too, Derek. Have a great night.
We'll see y'all.
Bye.